Zak Brown's statement about Oscar Piastri did not shock the paddock because it was emotional or controversial, but because of how definitive it was. Calling a driver a future world champion is not casual praise, especially when it comes from the CEO of a team that has just won a title with another driver. In Formula One, words at that level are chosen carefully, and Brown's message instantly reframed how Piastri's 2025 season and his entire future at McLaren should be interpreted. The timing of the statement is crucial. Oscar Piastri did not lose the championship quietly. He led it convincingly at mid-season, holding a 34-point advantage after the Dutch Grand Prix, before seeing that lead slowly erode. To publicly back a driver so strongly immediately after a title defeat is rare. More often, teams soften expectations or redirect focus. Brown did the opposite, elevating Piastri's status at the very moment his confidence could have been most vulnerable. By stating that Piastri is a future world champion, Brown effectively rejected the idea that 2025 was a missed opportunity that defines his career. Instead, he framed it as a formative season, one that proved Piastri belongs at the very top level of the sport. That alone is what left many inside McLaren and across the paddock stunned. It was not consolation, it was confirmation. Brown's words also carry weight because of context. McLaren allowed Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to fight openly for the title deep into the season. Both drivers won 7 races. Both were given equal machinery. In a sport where teams often intervene early to protect one driver, McLaren resisted that temptation. Brown's description of Formula One as a cruel sport acknowledges that sometimes performance alone does not decide championships. The cruelty Brown refers to is not about mistakes or lack of ability. It is about timing, momentum, and pressure. Piastri's form dipped during a critical mid-season stretch, not because his pace disappeared, but because the margins tightened and Norris executed relentlessly. Brown's statement reframes that loss as part of growth, not failure. What makes the comment even more significant is that Brown made it knowing full well the rumours circulating around Piastri's future. Speculation that Piastri and his management, led by Mark Webber, may be speaking to other teams has been growing. Former drivers like Juan Pablo Montoya have openly suggested dissatisfaction with how Piastri was managed during key moments of the season. Brown's statement directly addresses that noise without mentioning it. By publicly declaring Piastri a future world champion, Brown sends a clear internal and external message. McLaren does not view Piastri as a secondary asset or a supporting act. He is central to the team's long-term identity. In a team that just crowned Norris as world champion, that level of balance is difficult to maintain. And yet Brown leaned into it. Piastri's own reaction to the season is one of the strongest reasons why Zak Brown's confidence appears so firm. Rather than deflecting responsibility, questioning team decisions, or attributing the outcome to bad luck, Piastri spoke with unusual clarity about personal growth. His admission that he learned a hell of a lot about himself both as a driver and as a person is not generic post-season language. It signals a driver who understands that championships are not only won through speed, but through emotional control, self-analysis, and the ability to process pressure constructively. In Formula One, that mindset is often the difference between a fast driver and a future champion. That language matters because it shows Piastri did not experience the title loss as a collapse, but as an education. Drivers who internalize disappointment tend to stagnate. Drivers who analyze it tend to evolve. Brown's belief is clearly rooted in this response. A driver who can articulate lessons rather than excuses is a driver a team can build around during a regulation reset. From a performance perspective, the numbers fully support that confidence. Piastri's 2025 season was exceptional by any objective standard. Pole positions, race victories, Consistent podiums and sustained leadership of the championship deep into the year are achievements that many drivers never reach in an entire career. That he accomplished this in only his third Formula One season places him among the fastest developing drivers of the modern era. Brown's statement deliberately focuses on this trajectory rather than the final classification, because trajectories win championships far more reliably than isolated seasons. Championships can be lost through timing, momentum, or a handful of marginal decisions. Belief inside a team is much harder to earn and much more valuable to retain. By publicly reinforcing that belief, Brown ensures that Piastri's season is framed internally as a foundation, not a failure. Contrast with Jacques Villeneuve's assessment is particularly revealing. Villeneuve suggested that Piastri must be feeling terrible after letting a championship slip away. That perspective reflects an external, outcome-driven evaluation. Brown's response represents the opposite approach. Where Villeneuve sees emotional damage, Brown sees psychological preparation. This contrast highlights a key divide in Formula One, the difference between commentary that judges drivers by final results and leadership that evaluates drivers by development curve and response under pressure. Inside McLaren, Brown's words also perform an important stabilizing function. Managing two elite drivers in a championship-winning team is among the most complex challenges in modern Formula One. Without careful messaging, a single title outcome can quickly harden into a hierarchy that damages long-term competitiveness. By publicly backing Piastri so emphatically, Brown prevents that hierarchy from forming purely on the basis of one season's outcome. This is especially significant heading into 2026, when new regulations will reset performance and erase any advantage built under the current rules. The timing is deliberate. A regulation reset levels reputations as well as lap times. Brown's statement ensures that Piastri enters that reset as an equal pillar of McLaren's future rather than as the driver who came up short. That framing influences everything from internal resource allocation to how engineers engage with driver feedback. There is also a clear strategic dimension to the statement. In Formula One, perception creates opportunity. If rival teams believe a driver is undervalued, frustrated, or marginalized, they will test that assumption aggressively. Brown's declaration shuts that door decisively, at least at the narrative level. Calling Piastri a future world champion is not casual praise. It is a signal to the paddock that McLaren considers him non-negotiable. The Italian Grand Prix remains an unavoidable reference point in this discussion. Asking Piastri to move aside was framed by McLaren as part of maintaining internal parity. Yet it inevitably fueled speculation about long-term favoritism. Brown's comments now act as a counterweight to that moment. They reinforce the idea that no single strategic call defines how the team values Piastri or limits his future prospects. Crucially, Brown achieved this without diminishing Lando Norris. He was careful to praise both drivers equally, highlighting their identical race win totals and the way they supported each other throughout the season. That balance is essential. This was not a reallocation of status, but a reinforcement of dual leadership. It strengthens the credibility of Brown's words because it avoids the perception. From an opinion-informative standpoint, the real shock is not that Brown believes in Piastri's talent. That belief has been evident since McLaren fought to sign him in the first place. Shock lies in the timing and directness of the message. In Formula One, silence often functions as a form of ambiguity. Brown chose clarity instead. He removed doubt at a moment when doubt could easily have taken hold. For Piastri personally, this statement reshapes the narrative heading into 2026. He's no longer framed as the driver who lost a championship, but as the driver publicly endorsed by his own CEO as a future champion. That psychological repositioning matters enormously in a sport where confidence, expectation, and pressure are tightly intertwined. For McLaren, it signals confidence in its driver management philosophy. Rather than allowing a single title to define internal pecking order, the team is committing to long-term dual leadership. That approach carries risk, but it is also how sustainable success is built in an era where stability and adaptability matter more than short-term control. The wider paddock will take note. When a team principal or CEO speaks this openly, rivals listen. Such statements clarify who is unavailable, which projects are stable, and where future championship battles are likely to be fought. Ultimately, Zak Brown's statement leaves McLaren stunned, not because it contradicted internal belief, but because it exposed it so publicly. It removed ambiguity. It removed speculation. It told the sport exactly how McLaren sees Oscar Piastri. This was not reassurance. It was strategic positioning. And in Formula One, positioning often matters long before trophies are lifted.